health and social justice around the continent. So we aim to nurture these multidisciplinary professionals to be thinkers capable of innovating context-relevant solutions, to be able to influence health and social policies, to also lead equitable change across our African healthcare systems. So that's when we moved on to get launched. There is a famous short course that we have been conducting for the last, I think, 3 years, Advocacy for Reproductive Justice in Africa. This short course was basically designed to introduce participants to reproductive justice framework. We were emphasizing how people should advance access to sexual and reproductive health and rights across the continent, but through advocacy and through litigation. So that short course attracted a total of 7,738 applicants across 53 countries, including Europe, Asia, and North America. And we have been able to successfully certify 1,316 persons for this short course. And I can see some members, some alumni of the short course in this room. And then from the short course, we were able to progress and see how can we get, we noticed that people do advocacy, but they are based on either passion or experience, but there is no school or training where you go and you get a certification that you have advocacy. So we progressed and went into the academic programs, and we designed a bachelor's of sexual and reproductive health, and then we also designed a postgraduate diploma in sexual and reproductive health. Kindly move the slides. So the bachelor's, basically we are targeting young people that are directly from high school, and basically this bachelor's is to enable them to be able to understand the theory and the practice of sexual and reproductive health, and then they can also learn the art of advocacy so that we can change our healthcare systems in Africa. The postgraduate diploma now targets people that are already in community service, those that are in policy, our policy makers, and we hope that these ones will be able to understand the advocacy research methods, they will understand the principles of Afrocentrism, and then they can also be our stakeholders in moving the reproductive justice journey that we are talking about. So that is how we launched it last in March. That's when we launched the institute. We were also able to launch the auditorium, which will be able to seat over 1,000 persons. And then we went ahead, not only about this, we have other programs that are coming up. So we have, before the programs, we also launched a journal. We noticed the struggle that Africans have when we are sending our work to these peer-reviewed journals, how they take years and all that. So we are encouraging Africans to actually publish poems, publish stories, and then we came up with a journal that is called the African Journal on Health and Social Justice, and this journal was also launched on the 27th of March. So the journal symbolizes our commitment to scholarship. It serves as a platform for promoting intellectual dialogue, and basically for us that marked the beginning of collaborative effort to encourage African scholars to be able to publish this work, especially our Afrocentric work that we do around sexual and reproductive health. We've done a lot to operationalize this institute. We have done advancement, we have gone everywhere, and then all these official adverts that have been going out have been able to fetch us a total of 445 applicants. We can move to the next slide. 445 applicants that we are going to have, and these students are starting on the 11th, which is Monday. So we have admitted 142 students to do for the bachelor's and the postgraduate diploma, where 50 are bachelor's and 92 are postgraduate diploma people. And they are from different countries. We have students from Angola, Lesotho, Benin, Burundi, Cameroon. We also have people from Canada, DRC, Estonia, Ethiopia, and on and on. So the total, there are 32 countries. So we've gone ahead. We are not only looking at that, as I told you, that we are specifically into health and social justice. So we have other programs that are coming, and we are starting in Feb next year. So that is a master's in health policy and administration. We have also master's and postgraduate diploma and a bachelor's in health and social justice. We have postgraduate diploma in community health, global health, and digital health. And then we also have another campus. So we have two campuses. One is in Gayaza, the other is in like few kilometers from Gayaza, where we have a health service delivery program. Like I mentioned, that we don't just want to have healthcare professionals, but we want to see that if you're seeing a nurse, all you can see is care, is empathy, is courage, not like the current trend in our system. So we have designed bachelor's programs in nursing, in midwifery, pharmacy, clinical medicine, community health, medical laboratory science, and postgraduate diploma in medical education. And then these are also coming up. We noticed that mental health has been one of those highly research areas now, and that is affecting almost all of us. So we are also coming up with programs in mental health practice, and also geriatric mental health, and a master's in medical psychology. How are our students going to benefit? They are going to benefit because Ahaki Institute already has initiatives. We have fellowship programs, we have mentorship programs, we have apprenticeship, and we know that when we get these students, they can be able to gain some of these. And then also we have regional convenings like the Baraza, where we can expose our students to engage in high-level dialogue and also network and be part of policy change in the continent. Finally, we have an ideation hub. This ideation hub is where our researchers sit and think about decolonizing some of the things that we have been talking about. We also create a platform where students can be able to learn and also conceptualize cases, like SRHR cases are conceptualized in the ideation hub, and then we also support the students academically and also do their research and community engagement. This is the fastest I have ever had to speak. Thank you for listening.
So those that have questions, you can go and see Alima, or make sure you have a lunch table with them to deepen and also find out more about the courses, including those that want to join the faculty. Please have the conversations. So I'd like to take us to the next section, where we are starting to wrap it all up in terms of the last 3 days of deep, deep conversations. When we sent out the concept note and the program, it was very clear that we are going to live with something where we are committing ourselves as a collective. And in the last 3 days, we had a team that was dedicated to pull this together in form of a charter, the African Charter on Decriminalization of SRHR. I'd like to take the honor to invite Jessica Oga, Dr. Jessica Oga, to come and read for us the draft charter. And then after she reads it out, we are going to input to it and then formally adopt it with amendments, and then start wrapping up the day. You're welcome, Jessica.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you so much, Salome. Thank you all for being here for the past 3 days. I know that it has been hectic, but thankfully we're rounding up. But like Salome said, we're not rounding up without anything. We are rounding up with a charter that we believe would be helpful in decriminalizing sexual and reproductive health and rights. So we, the conveners and delegates of the 3rd Annual Reproductive Justice Litigation Baraza, held in Kampala, Uganda, adopt this charter in recognition of the urgent imperative to transform legal and policy frameworks governing reproductive justice on the African continent. We do so fully conscious of the enduring colonial legacies that continue to structure how the bodies of women, girls, and gender diverse persons in Africa are governed, not through care or consent, but through control. This architecture of power finds its most violent expression in the criminalization of reproductive decision-making, a system of regulation that is neither indigenous in origin nor neutral in effect. It was imposed through foreign legal orders that subordinated agencies policed sexuality and treated African life as a domain to be administered through punishment. The continued enforcement of these laws and policies decades after independence constitutes a profound failure of decolonization. The use of criminal laws and policies to regulate reproductive autonomy cannot be justified in a post-colonial constitutional democracy. These are not neutral or technical provisions. They are instruments that have produced deeply injurious outcomes, including the incarceration of survivors of sexual violence, the denial of emergency care to girls, the persecution of health workers, and the systemic exclusion of the poor and marginalized from lawful services. The lived realities that animate this charter are not hypothetical. They are borne out in testimonies of fear, delay, criminal persecution, and death. In many contexts, criminal persecutions have stripped women not only of their rights, but of their humanity. It has taught communities that seeking health is a risk, that offering care is dangerous, and that dignity is conditional. These laws and policies are not merely outdated. They are incompatible with any free and democratic society that purports to hold justice. We recognize that many African states have ratified the protocol to the African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa, a uniquely African articulation of reproductive rights in the global legal landscape. Its adoption marked a clear continental consensus on the indivisibility of reproductive health, autonomy, and dignity. Yet the continued reservation or non-implementation of Article 14, which affirms the right to access abortion and related health services, weakens the normative force of regional instruments, undermines judicial interpretations, and deprives health systems of legal clarity. This failure to give full effect to binding commitments is not a procedural issue. It is a political act with devastating consequences, and it is most visibly in the criminalization of reproductive health and the incarceration of individuals for conduct related to pregnancy, to sexuality, to gender expression, and to care. They breach positive legal duties arising from the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the Maputo Protocol, the African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child, and other complementary global treaties. More fundamentally, they violate the principles of necessity, of proportionality, and legality that underpin the legitimate use of criminal laws. I want to highlight that laws that punish acts of care or survival or subject people to police interrogation for seeking health cannot be reconciled with constitutional guarantees of equality, of dignity, and freedom from inhuman treatment. Moreover, no public health evidence supports the claim that criminalization reduces the incidences of abortion. What it does unequivocally is to drive care underground, delay life-saving treatments, increase maternal mortality, and heighten the risk of abuse in both formal and informal health settings. Criminalization does not deter abortion, it deters safety. And the burden of this deterrence is not evenly distributed. It falls hardest on the poor, on the young, those living with disabilities, those in rural areas, those displaced by conflict, and those without access to formal health systems. These are not occasional exceptions. They are the prevailing legal reality for the majority. The intensifying criminalization of healthcare providers, pharmacists, and community health workers further illustrates the deep dysfunction of the current legal provisions. It compels those entrusted with care to violate their most fundamental ethical obligations of privacy and confidentiality, forcing the disclosure of patients' innate information under the coercive shadow of persecution. These actors operate in contexts where the health system has collapsed or withdrawn, spaces where the law is absent, unclear, or unfair through fear. To persecute health workers is to criminalize a necessity. Particularly at risk are young people who often feel decentralized care responses through digital platforms, peer-led models, and community initiatives, but they also bear the brunt of punitive legal frameworks. They are surveilled, they are excluded from decision-making, and subjected to harmful cultural norms. Their criminalization is rooted in legal, cultural, and institutional systems and structures that treat their autonomy as a threat. Rather than being recognized as leaders in advancing health justice, they are too often rendered disposable. A legal order that punishes those who act where the state has failed cannot claim to be just. It can only be called complicit. The argument that moral values must be protected through laws and policies cannot stand where the law itself has become an instrument of harm. Legal systems and institutional structures that enshrine reproductive injustice cannot simultaneously claim to uphold dignity. The criminalization of reproductive autonomy is at its core a crisis of legal legitimacy. These laws were drafted without the participation of African women, and they bear no relation to the lived realities of their lives. They disregard structural inequalities, cultural context, and systemic health failures that shape reproductive decision-making, making them unfit for any society that purports to serve justice. A state that persecutes a woman for seeking reproductive health care, whether she's a survivor of violence, living with mental health disease, or compelled by socioeconomic hardship, while failing to provide affordable maternal care or emergency obstetrics services, cannot credibly claim to govern with constitutional integrity. A government that detains health workers for fulfilling their ethical duties has abandoned the rule of law in favor of regulatory fear. These contradictions are not moral ambiguities to be debated. They are profound legal failures that erode the foundation of constitutional governance. This charter affirms that reproductive justice cannot be realized with criminalization. Any law that treats care as a crime, survival as deviance, and autonomy as misconduct cannot be reconciled with a justice-respecting legal system. The repeal of criminal provisions relating to abortion, pregnancy, sexuality, gender expression, and care work is not an optional policy choice. It is a precondition for legal legitimacy in post-colonial Africa. And I move to our Baraza call to action. We insist that all reservations to Article 14 of the Maputo Protocol must be withdrawn, that national courts interpret constitutional rights to dignity, health, and freedom from inhuman treatment as fundamentally incompatible with the criminalization of reproductive autonomy, that regional mechanisms adjudicate sexual and reproductive health right cases with urgency, and that continental institutions recognize and respond to the criminalization of sexual and reproductive health rights as the legal emergency that it is. We reject without apology all laws, policies, and practices, whether colonial or contemporary, formal or informal, that criminalizes our sexual and reproductive health rights. We reclaim that African positive narratives on sexual and reproductive health rights as bold, unapologetic, evidence-based, and grounded in Ubuntu, free from the grip of criminalization and incarceration. And we affirm that barbaric laws must be repealed, that silence is no longer protection, and that justice begins where criminalization ends. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. So in terms of how we are proceeding with this, is there anything that you feel has been left out or where we are misrepresented in the charter? Yes. I'll need a team to help me move around the microphones.
Thank you so much for this. I believe definitely has a lot of very strong points. But a question, is this going to be sent for us to be able to read as well? Because listening was helpful, but it might be good to just read again and be able to do that. I really like the framing, but I was wondering, just based on the conversation we had today, if there was, I know we mentioned Ubuntu and things like that, but I think there's also somewhere where we have to couch it as African values, that this is speaking to what African values are, because this is also about narrative change. So I really think that would be very critical and very important. The other part that I think would be necessary is for us to also talk about what success looks like. We do know that certain African countries have showed that they're progressive. We have Benin, for example, we have Rwanda. I think we need to name the successes so that it's clear that it's possible and that this is actually being done, and for us to do that as well. And I also think in the recommendations, we need to name who we're speaking to. Are we speaking to member states? Are we speaking to the African Commission? Are we speaking to the AU? I think it's quite important to name where necessary. Maybe that happened and I missed it, but I think it's quite important to name that as well. And then, I've forgotten the last thing. Damn, and I wrote it down. That's not it. I forgot it. I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've noted that. Drafting team, I hope you're noting. We have a hand there. Can I get volunteers to help me move the mic? Where you see a hand, place the mic. And please, as you're presenting, you tell us who you are, your name, so that we can be able to capture that.
Thank you. My name is Abigail, and my comment is on the recommendations. So we canvassed that we want to remove those who, we're not happy about those who've put in reservations, the reservation bit. But I wanted to add that some of the countries represented here don't necessarily have reservations, but instead perhaps it's a domestication and implementation problem. So if that recommendation could cover, we don't want reservations, and to those that don't have reservations, we want better implementation or domestication.
We have on that table, and then here. No, did you have your hand up? Okay. You were scratching your head?
My name is Chintu Ruth from Uganda Police. My opinion or contribution is as regards a recommendation that a state party that is signatory to the Maputo Protocol should be barred from signing other contrary instruments that come by. Two, if other instruments on the same subject come, let them use technical, and I emphasize technical people before pending signatures. Because it's like, with due respect, some of our leaders just append signatures without involvement of technical persons.
Thank you very much. Any other? We have there on the same table.
Sorry, I'm blind. Yeah, no, thank you very much, Dr. Oga. I think it's a very strong charter. I like it. I think we need to balance between the criticism and some positive narratives we want to push. And I think maybe that's what we can convert some of those statements into, this is what we are stating as a charter, as opposed to this is what we are ranting about. So for example, I think for me, I would suggest we actually name SRHR as self-care, including abortion as self-care, that we declare this as self-care, and therefore any laws that do that as actually violent against women's self-care. So some positive language and narratives that we are always on the defensive. So I think the charter should also be proposing things that opposition can try to attack for the future, and then we can explain and build on to as a basis. But I had a lot of things there that can be converted into more positive narratives, more positive statements, as opposed to negative statements. Thank you.
Thank you. We have here, and then we'll go there to Yasin, DRC. We have Dorothy, you had your hand up.
Okay. Thank you so much. Do I have to say my name, Salome?
No, please introduce yourself.
Okay, Dorothy Amaron, and my comment is literally just how to reshape it from the introductory part, like have a preamble, because there were very powerful case scenarios from Latin America, and then the justices. One of the justices' case speech had case scenarios like from the medical aspects, and I think there were also parts from the doctors from Rwanda who had like scientific stories in terms of abortion and how they impact on women's livelihood. So it would be nice to make it more of a live chatter, like not the usual. Yes, so I think that's it. It would make it more vibrant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Yasin, DRC.
Thank you. I just wanted to add my voice in terms of harmonization of the local texts, local laws with the Maputo Protocol. Picking the example of the DRC. In the DRC, abortion, for instance, is criminalized in the penal code. Then the public health law allows abortion in some limited circumstances. Then we have the Maputo Protocol that is broader. Then, because of the history, the context, and of course the cultural, religious influences, the practice in Congo is that much as we have a broader, abortion is broadly acceptable because Maputo Protocol is basically, when you look at the constitution, it is superior when you follow the superiority or the hierarchy of norms, it is superior. But the interpretation of the law is always based on the, on the penal code, and that makes the whole essence of the Maputo Protocol sometimes not realized because many people don't even know about it, be it the lawyers, prosecutors, the judges. So I think it's important that we recommend a strong, we have a strong recommendation on the harmonization of the legal texts within the national legal frameworks with Maputo Protocol. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other? Yes, we have here. And then at the front. And our Latin America and Caribbean comrades, if there's anything you feel that we may have left out, you can also give us comments.
Okay, Baksh Osman is my name. So there are two things. One of them is, I think we need to speak to the aspect of the medical, the doctors, the officers and all that, because that kept on coming out, and how critical they are in this actual work, because they are part of the entire access to justice system. So I think we need to have something around that, and specifically either address it to the different associations and all that. But I think the other thing that we need to also look at is the framing of the language, and the framing of the language is going to speak to what Buki was saying. I think when we shall be framing language, we should frame language. If we are speaking to the states, what language are we going to use? If we are speaking, for example, to the commissions, what language? If we are speaking to professional associations, what language are we exactly going to use? Because that also will help us to have a clear message that is clearly cut out for each of the specific groups of people. The other bit that I think that also that came out from the young people's what was it? Paper they shared, the pre-Baraza that they shared, is around the role of the young people and young women, because that's where the biggest issue is. Where are they in this entire conversation? Are we able to center them also in the charter so that we are able, because we know there are several other movements. We have, for example, the Pan-African Youth Parliamentary movement and all that. How are we able to center those? Because those are groups that we are leaving out in the different advocacy conversations. Yet when they come to the civic space, they are really looking at that. Lastly, I think we need to look at recognizing that litigation should be framed within the ecosystems and movement, and one of the tools for the struggle, because one of the things that we are now thinking about is how can we empower litigation when it comes to issues around the anti-rights movement. So we need to also start anchoring it specifically into the ecosystem. But as I mentioned, that maybe also at one moment we need to just come out and say beyond, I think there's someone who mentioned earlier around what is the role of the lawyers in this entire process. I think we need to also understand that the lawyers are working in an ecosystem, and they need to work with different groups of people where they can get all this information to contribute to whatever they are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a hand there at the young people's table, and then we're going to end with the commissioner.
This is the young people's table?
Yes. There are actually two tables.
My name is Masi Karina, a law student at Makerere University. He has mentioned one of my points. I wanted to mention that the young people should be put at the center of this because most of the reproductive justice issues affect the young people. And also, I wanted to, I didn't get to listen very well, and I wanted to ask if the charter could be shared with us. Probably this point is there, but how are we harmonizing Afrocentrism with our laws? Because if you notice, most of our laws were sort of imported from our colonizers. How are we harmonizing Afrocentrism of the charter with our laws? Because as my brother said, the Constitution is the grand norm, it's the biggest law. But how are we bringing out Afrocentrism in our charter with harmony with the bigger laws in the land? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things I think we need to push for is ensuring that we have specialized courts that listen and administer justice for cases that relate to sexual reproductive health and rights. And this is based on the experiences we've been hearing about how there have been delays, for example, like the case of Mildred, which is not different from what happens here in Uganda. And so I think if we get to establish specialized courts that hear and determine such cases, it would ensure that the processes are fair and quick in terms of disposing of such cases, to ensure that there is limited case backlog, but also to ensure that there is access to justice, because delayed justice is justice denied.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, my
Please
name is
introduce
Eric.
yourselves, because we are adopting a charter. We need to know the member states that have contributed to this charter. So tell us at least your country and your name.
My name is Eric from Tororo, Uganda. I work for TDN, and there's something that came up from the young people. They talked about the role of the social support structures in the protection of women and girls in our countries. For example, if you look at Uganda, we have, for example, the local council courts. We have the parasocial workers. We have the VHTs. How can we highlight their role in the protection of girls and young women? Because we rightly talked about how actually policies on women, on their protection, is largely affected by our local policies, our local cultures, and so forth. And yet these are the custodians. How then are we going to highlight their knowledge, their expertise in ensuring that women are protected, but also how do we hold them accountable on the role they need to play in protecting women and girls' rights? Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Right Honorable Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I just want to commend the drafting team for a job well done, and for all the participants for the contribution they've made. Mine is just to say, what do we want this charter? What do we need it for? What is it going to be used for? Because if you identify what we're going to use it for, then the naming and the framing, we will actually reflect it properly, so that what we wanted, what the purpose wanted to serve, will actually serve that purpose. I think in terms of the background and the context, the preamble, we have to talk about, for example, within the African continent, we have the African Charter, we have the Maputo Protocol, the normative framework. You know, when you are presenting something that you're going to use as an advocacy document, it has to be authoritative. You center it on the normative framework within the continent, which starts with the ground norm, which is the Charter. And then it moves to the specific, which is the instrument that speaks to women's rights. And then you move to the specific further down, the relevant article of that instrument that is relevant to the issue we're discussing, which is Article 14. Then we actually look at how the mechanism responsible for interpretation has interpreted Article 14. We have a general comment on Article 14 that elaborates on state responsibility and everybody's responsibility and what is expected. So this can be part of the background so that we are actually centered on the existing. And then the threats. What are the problems that we're challenging? What's the mischief we're trying to cure here? So you cannot be speaking all over the place. You know, this Baraza actually very interesting, very insightful. So many things were discussed. But if you are preparing an outcome document, you have to structure it well so that anybody who sees it will know that these are not just angry people. These are people who are organized. You know, it's okay to be angry. There's nothing wrong to be angry because your anger is the context and the background. After you step the framing, then you say, despite this, these are the problems we are confronted with right now. X, Y, and Z. And put them on themes, relevant themes, so that anybody who is not here, remember, it's not the intercontinent that is here, remember. So it's an outcome document coming from here. The themes, the background will speak to the themes, the challenges. And then you come to what do you want positively, as Doctor has said, because you cannot just be ranting and raving. You have to now say, on this particular issue, this is what we're calling member states or African states to do. Because it's a collective responsibility. It's not only. This is what we're calling African states to do. This is where we're asking the African Union, because now for you to be able to do that, you have to understand the role of each of these institutions. What is the role of the AU in this as the overall body? What is the role of the African Commission and the mandate of the African Commission with regard to the issues that you've identified? And what are you calling on the Commission to do? The member states. You look inwards also. What is the role of civil society in this whole debate? Because we cannot always be looking outside and see pointed fingers and others. My daughter says when you're pointing one finger, four are pointing back at you. What is the role of civil society? National human rights institutions. And these days, we also must target our traditional leaders, our religious leaders, specifically. Why? Because we have to counter the narrative. Because the narrative is, this is not in accordance with our values. This is not in accordance with our religion. So what do we want those progressive religious leaders to do? Positively. So that it speaks to all the issues and the themes in a coherent and a logical manner. That anybody looking at it will say, yes, these people are angry, but they're organized and they're focused and they know what they want. And when we do that, we must be very deliberate about it, but the language we use in framing it also is important. Because we don't want to approach member states with language that seems very aggressive, that maybe we don't want to be, I don't want to use the word politically correct or incorrect, but really, it's the purpose. What do we want this instrument? What do we want it to serve? Is it a charter, as Solomon said, member states? Is it a declaration coming out of this meeting? Is it an outcome document? Because the naming also, because otherwise we're going to be going the way of the so-called Charter on African Values, which does not reflect the values. So I think let's reflect on that. And let's be coherent, let's be consistent. Let's speak on themes. And when we identify a challenge, we look for something positive to respond to it. To say this is what we want, this is the way we want to go. So for me, it's just the framing and the form I would like us to have a look at. And I really agree with Doctor that we also need to be positive and speak in the active form, as opposed not only in the negative connotation. The negative actually comes at the top in terms of the background, because that is why we're doing what we want to do, because this is happening. It's not in line with our commitments. So that's why you start with the commitments. This is happening. So there, then when you go, you will bring the issue of reservations, you bring the issue of domestication, you bring the issue of implementation, you bring the issue of state responsibility, you bring the issue of civil society being organized and coherent and integrated and consolidated, whatever word you can use, we have to work together. Because the issues we're dealing with are not small issues. It's like you're trying to move a mountain. And that's the reality. And in the context of the background, that's where you bring the backlash, the Trump issue, everything has been mentioned here, the GAC rule and all of this, and their impact on the work we do. And then what do we do now, positively? What are we asking states to do to counter those? This is why I said you must actually listen to the opposition, know what they're saying, and then have something that will speak to to the other side, or the real side, or the true side, if I can say that. So I think this is just what I would like to contribute to. This is the last statement. I'm hoping that it works. It's useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We deeply appreciate. So in terms of how we are proceeding with this, probably we're going to ask the drafting team to go back, integrate these comments, and get back to us with a revised version online, which will be adopted. Is that a fair way forward? Okay. So drafting team, your work has just begun again. But it's always good to have feedback, because feedback shows that people have engaged with what you shared with them, but also they are so passionate with us having a clear outcome document. So, in terms of how we are proceeding, we'll await, and also on our part for us to give feedback when it is sent to us. Give the feedback, because after that, and after it becomes a document that goes out there, we need to be able to own up to it, but also know that it is our document for us to move and use to move the mountains of the issues that we've talked about today. More importantly, at the next Baraza, we are going to hold ourselves accountable. How far have we moved with that charter? What has happened? So it's not just like some of these outcome documents that after we pass it, we pick our bags and go back home, we forget about it. It must be a document that is alive, and we must use it in our work, but also to push for more ground out there and break those boundaries that we feel are pulling us back regarding reproductive justice litigation. So now, I'd like to take the opportunity to invite the organizing committee. I told you, organizing this Baraza took a lot of energy, effort, time, resources, and thinking through. So I'd like to invite them to come here to the front so that you see who is there and who has made your work very complicated by giving so many questions in your mind. So I'd like to invite the co-conveners and then the collaborators, as well as anybody who is in that committee. You know yourselves, because we have a WhatsApp group that has blared for the last 3 days. I think we have thousands and thousands of messages. So please come to the front, and then we get into the closing, which closing is going to be done by one of the co-conveners who is representing the catalysts, the regional director for IPAS Africa Alliance, Dr. Musoba. So can we have the organizing committee come here to the front, and then we have the closing remarks. You want me to read your names on the list? We know ourselves. Let's clap for them as they are coming, eh? Go to the stage. Malia is not here, but I'm going to introduce her. So before they leave, we would like to acknowledge the various institutions that have really walked this journey. Organizing a baraza amidst a lot of funding cuts, uncertainty, busy schedules is no mean feat. Collectively, the organizing committee and the institutions that are here have really put together resources, not only in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of curating the agenda, but also in terms of challenging each other to ensure that the baraza, each baraza is better than the previous baraza. So I'll acknowledge the organizations and then you clap. Let us clap and leave the roof down, okay? So I'll begin with the catalysts, and whichever I acknowledge, you step a bit in front so that they see who you are. The catalysts. Those are the catalysts. We have Force Feminista. We have Rios. I know Analia is not here, but Laura is here. We have UNAIDS. We have Mama Network. We have Reach a Hand Uganda. We have Preclusion Project. We have Lira. We have Ajla, the Alliance, and then we have Ahaki. And then collectively we have you who had the madness of honoring our invitation. Thank you very much. So I'd like to invite Dr. Musoba to close us off and then tell us whether we deserve lunch. Thank you very much, committee.
Let's give them a clap as they sit. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Moses Mulumba for seeding these closing remarks. Actually, I sat there thinking he's not around. That's why I'm giving this speech. Then I'm surprised to see him. So thank you very much for the humility. I will not keep you very long. So first of all, I want to just thank each and every one of you for being here. And I want to give you an opportunity to just clap for yourself. Just thank yourself for being here. I was having lunch with Commissioner Njaya, and I was telling her, thank you very much for staying for the 3 days. So we really appreciate for your time. Much appreciated. I also want to thank Ahaki for convening us and the committee. I think it's been an amazing convening. Myself, I think I've learned a lot. So let's just give a clap for Ahaki as well. But also I want to I think I want to thank the women who the society has let down, the girls and the women who we have all let down, the victims who have either died or the survivors who've been traumatized by the incarceration, by the society and the humanity and the civilization we've organized around, which is really based on very Western, white, patriarchal, ableist, and heteronormative code that we are so much ingrained in our society that we create victims. And so for those women who have either died or who are victims of this system, I just wanted to say that we see you and we apologize and we will try to do better. And so my reflections really as we close down, I want to go back to the question I asked, and I think I'm not sure that I was misunderstood, but I think what are we willing to sacrifice for progress? What are we willing to sacrifice to protect the progress that feminist has actually made? Not us guys, some of us are beneficiaries of the feminist movement and tradition. And by sacrifice, I'm not meaning what are we willing to compromise, or what are we willing to cede. I'm a student of feminism. And I think for me, the other challenge I've always thrown at, especially at Ahaki authors, especially women authors there, I would like to see an Afro-feminist lens at things. So most of the feminism document and publications we consume has come from the West. So in all intents and purposes, could be racist, could be Western in its nature, it could be capitalist, ableist. But I think for me, there's a few African women authors who've written from a feminist lens, and I think I'm a student of them. But it would be very interesting what an Afri-feminist lens would look like. If you merge feminism and Afrocentricity, what emerges from there? So I think for me, there's potential there for feminist authors to explore using their feminist lens to see how we progress. But I think for me, the message really is to say that our politeness, if we live here and we think that our politeness and our courtesy and our respect of the systems that are do not make a difference. If we think they don't. And so we have a very huge responsibility to dismantle these colonial legacies, to use litigation as a transformative tool and power to change the systems as opposed to just tokenistic changes at the margins. And let's pursue this resistance. Let's pursue this disruption. And I think for me, as we've talked so many times, let's pursue also solidarity at the edge of what we really want. So I think on my own behalf as the director for IPAS Africa Alliance and the Catalyst Coalition, I think we just wanted to share our renewed commitment to an Afrocentric reproductive justice political project. We, in our own small corner, will be pushing abortion rights and pushing abortion as self-care and trying to make our laws liberal so that women can exercise their bodily autonomy. No woman wakes up and says, I want to have an abortion without having thought through it. It's a self-care. So I think for us as IPAS, we'll do our bit in our corner, but we want to do it in partnership with others who are also advancing other causes, and that we hope that we can meet again at the next Baraza with a lot of positive celebrations because all of you have left here and have sacrificed something and not just going home and then sleeping and waiting for the next Baraza. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Now that they've closed, the only thing I'm doing is to give announcements. The first announcement, which you've heard from the closing remarks, we've been invited to the next Baraza because the conveners have told us until the next what? Baraza. So pack your bags, prepare your schedule, know that next year in August, you're going to be at the next Baraza. The venue, they will tell us where. Isn't that good news? We're already invited. Then secondly, the second announcement, please leave behind the equipment for the translation. Yes. The kind of work I do is like somebody who serves meat at a party. People love you and hate you in equal measure. Then the last one is around airport transfers. Please check your schedule and make sure that your airport transfer, the time is right, because we do not want you to miss your flights. You've given us so much of your time and yourself this week. We don't want you to be stuck. And then, of course, it's assumed that Ugandan participants all checked out because it's 2 o'clock. You're supposed to check out at 11. If you didn't check out, you have to sort a few things out with the reception or with the organizing team and make sure that that is sorted out. Lastly, I'd like to thank you very much for allowing to engage in such a heavy Baraza. The schedule was so heavy, but you brought your whole selves, body, mind, and soul. Thank you very much. It's an indication of the commitment that you have. We've all brought our pieces of information to share. Let's continue the sharing. If you've not gotten an opportunity to get someone's number and you wanted to talk to them, we have between now and the whole night up to morning for those of us who are leaving tomorrow, but also we have a whole afternoon, and we've ended in good time for us to be able to continue doing the Barazaring at an informal level. On my part, I'd like to also thank the team that was doing secretariat work, the rapporteurs. Please stand up, Winnie and your team. We had a team of rapporteurs, young women, very agile. They were doing a lot of the rapporteuring and making sure that at the end of each day we have something that feeds into the next day. Thank you very much, Winnie and the team. I'd also like to thank the core coordinating team in Ahaki. I do not know how many times we've talked. Sharon and Dr. Oga, I don't know how many of us received so many emails from them. Please stand up to be acknowledged. Thank you very much for that. And of course, lastly, often in meetings, people come, open the meeting and leave. We need to put our hands together to thank the people that are coming in from the spaces which we go to seek support. Let's thank Honorable Commissioner Janet Salah for staying through, for engaging with us both in the formal space, but also in the informal spaces. I know many of us have, beyond asking for the selfie, have really gotten a feel of as basic as what is the difference between the African Commission and the African Union. I know somebody asked her at the reception, he said, but what is that difference? Because she has so much on her plate, but being here with us throughout is no mean feat. Thank you very much. We'd also like to thank Dr.